Welcome back, everybody. Hey, Lauren. Hey, this is your whole thing. Hey, why don't I hand this mic over to you? Lovely to see you.
Well, this was so fun to look back on. It's been since we premiered it in what year was it? It's hard to even remember. 2022. And this was the first time I had watched it again, and it feels like such a relic of that time, and such, I love how, for me, as I look back on it, so much of it was coming from such a impulsive, on the surface level, and just we have to make to survive. And so I think through Ruin, it truly was, I think for me personally, what got me through the pandemic, to be able to make and to feel like the way that we can all come through it is through creation. We have Annika here, Annika Barlow, who is going to be moderating this talk back, so I'll turn it to Annika to take us in a more organized way.
Hello, thank you, Lauren. Well, we obviously have Aidan, Lauren, Andrew, Elijah, who's the production designer, and Cydney Covert star. The first thing that I wanted to say was, this was my first time seeing it in full, and what really struck me was how romantic it was, in tone and in content as well. It felt like the heart of the film was really the love of the theater and love of performing and the stage and the community that we find through both. And so, what I also loved was this idea in the very beginning of the phantom of the theater, and how that idea has always sort of been a little haunting. But in Ruin, the theater is a playground, and you see every room in this theater in a different light. They're transformed. The bathroom is a stage, the hallway makes space for fantasy, the orchestra pit is a place for romance. And so I wanted to ask how you sort of went about using the Morrison Center as sort of a central character in the film, and what inspired that for you.
Hey, thanks, Annika. That's really cool. That's a great question. I think that the one thing I can say about myself as a storyteller is sense of place is the most important thing, and I think I've heard that critique more than once, that where we're at is kind of the heart of a lot of the stories about it. I like to tell, and I think for whatever reason it kind of lent itself to this big weird obelisk building, to talk about all these people who their whole thing is performance, and what happens when you have performers that can't perform is a cool concept. I think we were kind of making up the story as we went, finding the story as we went in a lot of ways, because I've never worked in this way before, and it was really opening and freeing to me to come into a project where you're like, well, there's a lot of elements that are interpreted, and I'm such a story guy, and I think COVID, it was not great. We all agree on that, but it was nice for me as such a rigid story person to be forced to work in a world that was a little bit more free form. I think it made me grow as an artist, and I really loved and respect that process. I think it was fantastic. And working with you in this space, having kind of free roam. I don't know how it normally works at the Morrison Center, but I feel like we got to kind of do whatever we wanted, which again, it's COVID times, but that's really fantastic that we really got to experiment and kind of poke and try different avenues with different parts of the building and be like, does this work? Can we do this? Can we do this? And it was really cool to experiment with that. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, I would just add that, yeah, the Morrison Center was very much so just a playground, and they were so open to us coming in and exploring the space and figuring out the character of that building. And I love how Aidan describes that it felt like it was so free at times, because I think as I kind of felt the relationship too between us was about kind of day-to-day gathering information, like gathering where we were personally, like we were all in such a tenuous time that anything could throw off production. We could during that, I think it was 7 days that we filmed at the Morrison Center, if there was a positive COVID test, it would have derailed everything in that day. And so I think we were very much so just living moment to moment and having to make adjustments as they came, and gathering from the amazing artists involved, and trying to weave together that had such bones, which I love about Aidan's direction. I've got Andrew and Aidan on both sides, but Aidan is so rooted in narrative and so grounded in creating that framework that I think that it really set the freedom of the abstraction, the more abstract parts of it, in such a beautiful way. And this was the first time that Andrew and I got to work with Aidan, and so it felt like as Andrew and I were watching up in the booth, we were both reflecting on how such it was a pivotal moment in both of our growths as artists, because I think Aidan challenged us in such big ways. We work generally between the two of us kind of equal parts, and to have Aidan come in and kind of in a kind of non-negotiable way say,
I was a huge pain in the ass.
No, but I think it truly was like the sort of friction, and we talk about this, the friendship that was forged through that period, that like, when Aidan would come to our house for, when Andrew would share pieces of music, and Andrew would spend hours and hours and hours working on composition, and Aidan would just say, I just don't think that's gonna work. So I think that this, like the rigor of this, and like, and it felt so meaningful, especially in a time when we, what else were we to do but kind of save ourselves through this process.
And I'm going to be honest, I loved it when Aidan said, this just isn't going to work after a 36-hour session. Because what it did was it zoomed in on the things I needed to work on and how I needed to look at things when it came to composition and film, because I'd never done anything quite like that. And so having that direction was awesome, and Aidan and I we bonded through that experience in big ways, and so it was wonderful. But I love, so it was an awesome experience for all of us. I think it brought us all closer, as walking through the fire of something does for a group of people. But, with the Morrison Center, it was almost like the right brain infiltrating the left brain, this technical space, this space that was very structured and set up, and us being able to explore it in creative ways that were unique to its own identity as this theater space. We, as Annika said, you take the bathroom and turn it into a stage. You get to corrupt all these things and disrupt all these aspects of the space in a way that was wholly unique, and it was a playground in that way, because these things have these very rudimented space, these things that this is the bathroom. You're going to the bathroom here. No, you're tap dancing and you're having some random janitor come in and with a radio. And it was just a fun, exploratory thing. But yeah, the experience itself, we were so, we think about Boise, Idaho as this incredible place that we all get to live, but you know, there is geographic isolation to Idaho itself, and Boise especially, and we're off the grid a little bit. And so then within this moment of more isolation, it just felt, I don't know, it felt like we developed our own little community in this secret little cove for a moment. It was special.
You know what, like 48,000 square foot.
Yeah.
Is that just this tiny little?
Do you remember going to the sewer, or not the sewer?
Do you remember the ventilation ducts that we went? Did you visit those spaces?
I don't think I saw this.
The Morrison Center has these secret spaces that are. That's what kind of triggered me to make it feel that it felt like a mine, is because you go into the bowels of the Morrison Center and it's just these tunnels where the ventilation ducts come up through and ventilate into the seats, and so they suction all the air out in that way. And I think Lydia Sikowski-Basquiat used this in one of her films, and yeah, it's an interesting place. It's got a lot of depth to it, a lot of very purposeful, you know, technical spaces that we got to use creatively.
Lots of places to hide bodies. It's back to that haunted part, the phantom.
Phantom part.
Yeah, speaking of using the Morrison Center and messing with defined spaces, Elijah, from a production standpoint, how did you incorporate the space as it existed into your work, and also, importantly, to note that shrine with the fabric walls in it that was a piece of Elijah's that had existed prior, and that also becomes a character in the film. So if you could talk about that a little bit, and also about your experience.
Absolutely. So yeah, this actually touches on the origin stories of me meeting Lauren and Andrew and working with LED and collaborating with them throughout the years. Was meeting them, one of their performances at Kin, when Kin was doing the outdoor shows during COVID. Lauren, I think 30 seconds into meeting me, was just like, "Oh, I saw your piece at the Boise Art Museum. We're making a film. You want to put it in the film? All right, bye." It was like this. She hardly knew me from Adam, but like what I loved about that moment is like her gut instinct as an artist and a curator was just. I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Yeah, just her gut instinct and her ways of like bringing people together and these efforts to collaborate were just, it was impossible to say no to, because although I may lack my self-confidence within myself, when someone else believes in me that strongly, it's sort of like, fuck yeah, like, I don't know anything about this film, but like, yes, you can use this art piece. And I just carte blanche, just handed it over to Lauren, and she fit it into the script in ways that she saw fit. We did do like a site visit of the whole theater, and sort of were like, so I was able to see all the different rooms that things were taking place in. But otherwise, I would just get these like really cryptic emails from Angel that were just like, you need to build this concession sign, or you need to like I was just sourcing a lot of things that were just filling up these spaces. But when it came time to the filming, it was interesting to watch it tonight, because like a lot of the filming that took place, a lot of the scenes that were shown tonight, I was not privy to at all, because I was busy while filming was happening, setting up props in one of the rooms on like the far east side of the building. And then when that was being filmed, and like when Tony's scene with the goldfish, I wasn't even able to be on set for that, because I was setting up the other side of the building for another scene. And it was a lot of kind of a rat race energy, which I really loved. But really, I was just sort of like the conduit. I handed over my artwork to Lauren and her script. I had a lot of ideas on my own that were just in the back of my head. When we first did that site visit, I thought it was going to be this like Lynchian kind of dreamscape. I thought it was just going to be just nothing but we discussed the left and the right brain. I thought it was going to all be just pure abstraction. So I was like, this is perfect. Why else would they ask for my art if it was going to just have a story? So as I saw the story building, I was like, okay, I see why I'm getting a goldfish from PetSmart. There's a reason for this. So I just sort of trusted with a lot, still continued just to have a lot of faith. I was populating these rooms. I didn't know how it was all going to fit together, but so for me it was also freeing too, because I'm usually the one in my own art practice sort of being like, this is exactly what it looks like. And I just sort of gave it all away to people that I had barely met and trusted wholeheartedly. So,
but it became a great connection.
it did, yeah. I mean, and I think that was the beauty of it too. It's like I'm not a film person. I mean, I watch film. That's my first film that I've ever worked on. So it's not like I got brought in because I had the experience. I got brought in because, well, I think I'm okay to be around. But it was an amazing experience in that sense. So, yeah, I hope that answers that question.
And she's already arrived. I was about to introduce the shadow figure, the phantom of the theater, and the voice of Ruin, Luma Jasim. Okay.
Thank you. Cydney. On Thursday, those of you who were here who saw all of the short films, Cydney, you said that Lauren has a film of you for every year of your life since you were 18. Can you talk a little bit about your experience sort of through your illustrious film career, how it has inspired you, how it's impacted your dance practice, and specifically in Ruin, I feel like that's such a large undertaking for all of the dancers, and for you specifically, just talk a little bit about that and how it makes you feel.
Well, Ruin is very special for a lot of reasons, but the first thing that comes to mind is that it was quite a long process, both in the creation of the dance prior and then the post-production. After we finished filming, it was another 2 years before we saw it. And leading up to filming, I think we rehearsed for like 2 months or something, which, having worked with Lauren many, many times, having been privileged enough to work with Lauren many, many times, usually our process is much shorter because we're preparing for like one show. And you want things to be fresh, and with a film, it becomes a little bit more about accuracy, and also we were working with Aidan for the first time, and I had done films before, some short films for Lauren, but I had never done what I would consider like a movie, kind of what Elijah said. And I remember being really stressed out by Aidan and like his vibe.
No way!
And also to note, I was 20. I was 20 years old. It was the depths of the pandemic, and I didn't know, many of us didn't know. I was lucky enough that I was also, and I'm still currently employed with Ballet Idaho. So I had a job, which a lot of dancers, a lot of artists generally were like in that big unknown place. But it was a stressful time, and I wanted to be really good, and I wanted to nail everything. And I remember telling myself that I was gonna make 0 mistakes, because if I made 0 mistakes, Aidan wouldn't say anything mean. And then we would get to be done filming my scenes. And it worked perfectly, actually. That I nailed it, and I think I did a really good job. And thank you.
Southern culture.
Yeah, I loved that. I mean, I think we had a lot of our characters. We didn't come in and Lauren said, "This is who I want you to be." It was, let's start building something together that we can make sense in this world. It was a super collaborative effort. So Lauren and I, as we were building my character, it was like a Southern beauty queen mixed with Gwen Verdon, kind of a David Lynchy type character also. Like, it just was something that, when I look at it now and when I watch that dancing now, I see a lot of like trademarks of what I like to do when I move, and I consider Ruin, and the process of Ruin and my dancing in Ruin to be a big turning point for me as a dancer. I think that it's where I started to develop like my actual voice and kind of my style. And I actually think I spoke about this at the Q&A we did for Alexa Rose when we were talking about collaboration, but I had a rehearsal with Lauren where we were working on a solo, and it was a solo that we had a lot of material. There are things that did not make it into the film, and this was a solo that didn't end up making it, but I remember working on this phrase with Lauren, and she was like, that, like what you just did, hone that. Like that is so, it's interesting, it's impressive, it's unique, and that was like, that really clicked for me. So when I watch Ruin now, I see the foundation of a lot of things that as a dancer and an artist, I've tried to keep honing and have tried to grow within myself. And I think also I was talking to Garrett Anderson and Courtney Anderson of Ballet Idaho out in the lobby, but that group of dancers, like, that was a very specific time and a very specific place, and many of those dancers have retired. None of them, aside from myself and Brett part-time, live in Boise anymore. So it's also like very sentimental to look back on this movie, because I think I said to Garrett, I was like, we were all dancing really hard because we didn't know what was next. Like, we didn't know what was gonna happen. And so I see a lot of like passion when I watch Ruin. I feel like people are really giving it their all, and I see that in myself too. So I'd say it's like Ruin is a foundational experience for me. Yeah.
That's very inspiring. It is. I want to talk about, you mentioned accuracy, and watching the film, it all seems incredibly accurate, and it also all seems incredibly live. There's a very visceral aspect, especially to the dancing and the movement, that feels very immersive in ways that is not really felt in other dance films. And I think that's really a testament to the filmmaking, to the choreography, to the performances, all of the aspects involved, and especially the sound design. I don't know if it's just the sound system in here or something, but it sounds really good. And so that was amazing.
That was me.
For Luma, you are obviously no stranger to movement or storytelling, but I wanted to ask you, was Ruin your first experience in a dance production, or you might call it strictly dance production? How did that differ from your more natural way of storytelling, and how has it impacted your personal practice?
Thank you. Well,
the way I work in my art, I'm really experimental artist. I love to try so many things. This film was the first time experience for me to be with a group of dancers, and we met just by accident. Me and Lauren, one time I was with a friend and drinking beer, but I just came from New York, moving back here, and we started talking, and then she learned more about my art, and she suddenly invited me to be part of this film, which, like we all know what's the pandemic been. It was like, and especially for me coming back, I'm like, I want to do stuff here in Boise before I move back. So it was like a dream that come true to have this adventure of being with like something that I never experienced before. Watching the dancers and what they are doing was like very inspiring and motivating for me. Everything was very good until it didn't show up.
They're just ripping on you.
The amount of rehearsals that we did and ideas and the sketches Lauren was like building. Until the end, I really don't know what was my role exactly. And then by the end, I'm looking at the film and like, where I am? And today, I was like, I think I was the genie in the film. Like today, seriously, all this time.
You're welcome. Yeah, you kind of know.
I'm like, is it because I'm Arabic? Now I see myself huge in the background and just saying, hey, your wish is gonna be true. You know? So it was like waking through. That's why I didn't have a chair here, I think, because I thought about that. So I was calling everybody to come here, and then I'm like, okay, there's no chair. Like the Morrison Center, I got invited for the Q&A, and then there was no chair for me. Yes. I'm just kidding. I love those people, and that's why I stayed, because, yeah, we worked together in this project, which was, as I said, dreamlike. And since then, we are friends more than anything else. So, yeah.
Seeing your character and your performance for the first time, your character very much sort of felt like what felt like I can only describe as like a character in a Philip Glass opera. Like it was very grand and mysterious and sort of not of this world, but also guiding the story and in a very interesting and unique way. And how much of that was from you and how much of that was from Lauren? Or how much of that was original?
I believe there is a lot of things that was a translation of what Lauren wanted on her script. So the part that I feel like there was something that I'm involved in is the dance at the end, or it was coming up in different parts of the film. And we call it chobi back home. I'm from Iraq, and we practiced with this dance. There was different ideas about how this is gonna go and how it's gonna end. It's really hard for me to tell what, but I think most of the parts were Lauren's vision of how she wanted things to go. I was like, even with using my language, if it's Arabic, or my body, it was kind of another, not dancer, but like another character that's going with the flow of how she wanted an Aidan afterward, yeah. So, yeah.
I grew up in there, yeah. This was such an interesting and fun process because it was so iterative. It was not one thing from the beginning. The dances themselves were very much kind of like rehearsed and built out, but then we also, you know, as we kind of evolved the story, things kind of shifted. But it was a way I'd never worked before, I guess, in a live setting, because we were trying stuff, we would try it again, we would say, well, what does this story mean? How do we make that fit into the larger narrative? We were just kind of trying a lot of stuff. And I think that's where the most, you know, basis instinct of collaboration kind of lives, is you try things and you don't know if it's going to work or not, but you're going to try it and you're going to see what works. And we had the benefit of time in this entire project to try and make things. Sometimes it would feel good, sometimes it wouldn't. Sometimes we would just sit there and we would kind of workshop it. And I know that was something I loved with Andrew. I know, like we recorded all of the voiceovers in your guys' like sauna in your house, which was really cool. But just finding a place where, like, okay, we're gonna try these voiceovers. Maybe they're gonna work, maybe they're not going to work, but we're gonna do it. And the entire thing was very much just a building process. And I thought that was so fun and liberating. And it doesn't really exist in art these days, because everything's got a timetable. You have to get it done for a certain amount of, you know, it's got to premiere in September or October. You know, like there's a predetermined date. And with COVID, you kind of got to sit there and we got to say, well, let's try stuff. Let's figure it out. Let's see what feels good to us. And we tried a lot of things, and I think that was like the most formative part for me, is trying things with a really great group of artists to say, well, this feels good, this doesn't feel good, and it was always a collaboration.
Definitely. I would just add that I remember the process, as Cydney talked about, was it did feel like a long time, and it felt like we really were just the act of coming in daily felt like that was the most important thing. And I think, you know, I remember rehearsals with Luma where we had a mic set up and you would be in real time speaking as the dancers would be moving. And this was we have recordings of all of these incredible stories that Luma was sharing about leaving Iraq and her time in Iraq. And that truly was formative to what I held on to as we were building this work. And yet, as Aidan says, you know, like what ends up in the film is interesting, because all of that time, you know, the hours and hours and hours and days and weeks and months that lead into a film, ultimately you end up getting your heart broken at times, because you feel like, well, where does all of that other material rest? And I think what I hear, though, from every person that's been a part of it is that is why this film is so valuable. I mean, I think about, you know, Aidan and Luma and Angel and Daniel and Cydney and Elijah and Tony and all these people that we were building something that felt so much bigger than ourselves. And even though, you know, like certain pieces didn't show up, they're still resonant in each of us. And that's, I think, the heart of Ruin, is that it's like this, it feels like it is, I think, it's such a creation that needed everyone involved, and it needed that time, and it needed us to be in service to it. It felt much bigger than each of us.
I have two more quick questions. If anyone in the audience who has a question, if you raise your hand. For Andrew, your music has always felt very cinematic to me personally. having had the opportunity and the pleasure of dancing to your music many times now, it's always felt like it has such a very structured narrative, and I'm sure a lot of that is also my arranging in her own way. But if I'm not mistaken, this was your first score, as well as you wrote the music, the songs that also play in the film. How was that experience different from composing songs, writing lyrics, and instead trying to sort of create this cinematic environment?
It was vastly impactful as far as my understanding of what it meant to, get involved in orchestral music in a way that I had never really been before. Aidan and Lauren, they pick the greatest composers for cinematic feats of all time. So when their temp music comes in, it's the biggest top composers of all time. So I had this interesting anecdote of one of my favorite teachers ever, which was a gentleman named Dr. Mooney from Boise High, and he told me about how he had to learn French and when he was in grad school, and it was his minor for it was connected to something, but he said the French teacher just put a book in front of him and said, just write out the translation and you'll learn French. And that's kind of how that experience happened. But it was so important for me to be kind of thrown into that space and to really exercise any potential that I could possibly have when it came to film scoring, because it's not an orchestra. I'm not creating a symphony, but I am creating bits and pieces of and taking those and making them transpose into the character that is on screen, and that was a totally different experience for me. And so it's influenced everything that I've done, from Strange Darling to even aspects of Look Mom, and it bleeds into everything that I'm going to be doing thus far. So, yeah.
And you're tagging me, pink eye. Yeah.
And my cat did give Aidan some form of pink eye. I don't know. It wasn't pink eye. It was an allergic reaction that I've never seen. And then my mom had never seen. My mom was there at our house at the time. And Aidan was petting our cat. And by the way, he said, we're in our sauna. This sauna that we have at our home is a coal burning sauna. I don't even know what it is. We've never used it. But it's a room from the 1970s that was an add-on that we used as a recording booth, but never gotten to use as an actual sauna. So, everybody was like, oh, there's sauna, that sounds fun. Yeah, it's it's like an old wooden box. It's a treasure trove.
It was important to know. But it was important to know.
The last question is for each of you. And in your own respective roles that you played in this film, it crosses over so many genres. It's a dance film, it's a musical, it's a drama, it's a tragedy even. How did each of you, what did you bring to sort of create the space that would lend itself to all of those different traits and shifts very seamlessly?
Whoa. I think that, I felt I was younger than I am now when we did it. I'm still a young person, but I felt really eager. I felt like I had a sense of eagerness and excitement about Ruin that allowed me to approach it just sort of, it felt kind of like blind. We knew what the dance was going to be going in. Like I said, like meeting Aidan and bringing Aidan in it changed things, and I think for the better. Like the collaboration was a success. You saw it, it's a beautiful film. And I think without that openness, it would have felt more tense for sure, in a way that I don't think would have been as productive. I had never done any what I would consider acting before, and after Ruin, Aidan was like, "You are good at this," and I was like, "Okay." So I'm going to Hollywood, be a big star. So I think that just a sense of excitement. It was something unlike anything I had ever done before, and I haven't done anything like Ruin since. So it's very special and singular in my memory and just in my experience in general.
Yeah, I would kind of repeat what I'm just going to say what Cydney said. No, true, it's the excitement, but I think I was able to divest myself. I mean, the pressure was on, clearly. There was a lot of money going into it and people's time and all that, and so I felt like there was a little bit of pressure off of my shoulders where I could just sort of focus on my one little job, where it's just I'm gonna fucking nail it. It's sort of do the best that I could, even though it felt insane. I mean, the stuff funneling in towards me, oftentimes it was related to meetings that I wasn't in, and I would just have to be like, all right, that's what I'm doing today, and it was, and approaching that with joy, approaching that with faith, and trust, and just sort of keeping my head down and just making sure the job got done. It really put me in a nice cog in the wheel kind of situation that felt really good. I think it's what I needed at the time. But community. It's not that it was this godless machine type of God. It's that I was nested deep into this kind of cool community, and I was just I found my part, and I felt like I rode that wave famously. So.
Yeah, I felt this new. I think that we all felt some framework of a calling towards what we were trying to accomplish individually for this work that would collectively make something special. And mine was geared towards rigor and challenge, as I talked about before. I mean, listening to some of the temp music and being like, okay, this is John Bryan, this is Bernard Herrmann, Alfred Hitchcock's composer. These things were so valuable, and they relate. And to me too, I was thinking about it as well in the sense of, if I can lift the level with which I'm approaching this work in a way that challenges me and surprises me in the end, well, that's just the benefit to the community that is at large. It's if we're pushing the limits of ourselves, that pushes the limits of what's anybody's capable of on any given day. I mean, the challenge is welcome, and that was, to me, what was the most important part, is that you can set a challenge in front of somebody in their own medium and say, are you willing to rise to this occasion? And I think in every front with Ruin, everyone did. And yeah, it's pretty special.
Oh, God, where to start? I think collaboration is something very big for me to practice and to be open for. Coming back to Boise and trying to find my roots again here was a little bit challenging for me, but then I was starting with this film and meeting so many people and having a community of things. I mean, we had parties, we had a lot of times in the backyard drinking and smoking and talking, and beside the film itself, it's just like having this gathering and feeling like the artistic vibe that we all need all the time. I also felt a healing time, honestly, because COVID time was like a disaster for everyone, as we know, but finding this, chance to be creative in a very strange way, because it's not something that I used to do. Also, what we talked before about, like Lauren mentioned, that there was a lot of rehearsals that we were almost improvising, which is one thing that most of my work has to do with, like the improvisation of the connection that can be created at the moment between the music, the storytelling, the body movements. All of these were really beautiful and powerful the way we did it. Using the Arabic language in the film is something very I forget that we used the Arabic. Today when it started, I'm like, oh my God, yeah, I was saying things in Arabic, and so feeling something from my identity as a person who belonged to this community here is something that I appreciate. So, yeah.
That's a great answer. I mean, this is truly the first time I've seen the film since we played at the Egyptian, four years ago? And in that time, I mean, this was the first organization I worked with when I came back to Boise. I was doing my own independent filmmaking, working on my own projects. This was a entryway back into a community that I've been very much, disparate from for a long time. I was out of Idaho for about 18 years, and it was a great way to be like, well, let's get back into the place that I keep writing about this place as a filmmaker. I keep talking about this place in my own terms, but I hadn't made anything with Idaho artists in probably, a decade. So it was a cool way to see another side of Idaho, maybe less romanticized than the way that I've been writing about it in my own personal stuff, and come into a space and say, well, let's see what this project's going to be. And I love Idaho. I mean, I guess I would say the difference in 4 years now, right? 5 years? I mean, we have the Idaho Film Society. We are building a place for filmmakers and film lovers, and really trying to hone what the future of cinema looks like across Idaho through this organization. But I don't think that could have happened without, working with my friends at LED and seeing what they're building and learning from them in a way that made me say, okay, well, I know what I like, but I want to know what Idaho is not one voice. It's a lot of different perspectives, and this was so much fun and challenging, and I am the first person to say, I'm kind of a pain in the ass to work with. Rich, isn't that right? Yeah, okay, no, he's falling asleep.
There's been enough people say it tonight.
Yeah, it's true. But you fight hard for things you care about and you believe in, and this was such a fun, challenging project, and it made me say, well, this is what I love about Idaho, this is what I love about performance and art, and I think with every single scene, we really, really tried to do something that felt innovative and fresh and new in places that you've probably seen, 10, 15, 20, 30 times before. And it was about trying to reinvent that and make something feel fresh and alive. And I love that challenge. And I think Idaho is poised to be the next great artistic capital in the next 5 to 10 years. And it only happens because we try and push each other to be better. So this was a really, formative project for me. I learned so much. I will not begin to say that I'm a knowledgeable dance person, but I love the art and the format, and it was a really great experience for me.
Thanks, Aidan. I'd love to hear all of that. I think what's striking to me about this film is that I don't think I thought for a moment that anyone would see it. I think that I was so in such a beautiful flow of like I am doing as Rick Rubin says, like make the art that you like, the art that you love. And I can see such a vulnerability in choices that I was making that I look back on and I envy in some ways, because I think what that period of time fueled in each of us was a certain amount of freedom that we can't get back, but I think that we can tap into, and that's the beauty of film. That's the beauty of holding on to these relics of moments that capture such, especially for dance, the ephemeral nature of dance. I feel like this whole 4-day process has been so powerful for me to just look at what can be captured in cinema, and I think these moments you can hold on to them and you can take them with you. And one thing that I will just say about Aidan in working with him on this process, dance on camera can often become somewhat, I think a director can try to do more and to try to embellish and add flourish and slow-mo and lots of cuts. And what I really appreciate about Aidan's approach was that he wanted to really honor the purity of the dance itself, just how beautiful it existed on its own, and these long takes and these sweeping moments that didn't have a lot of cuts. That's not often what you see in dance, because I think sometimes choreographers and dancers can become self-conscious and they think it's just not enough, and so to have a filmmaker really honor that, and I think to see it in what it could be is really special. And I just love all these people who have been a part of it. It's been such a huge part of our journey as an organization, and as we look to what we want to do in the future, Ruin was such a pivotal moment of growth for us and clear direction of what we want to do as we continue to make art.